Wow, he didn't just get arrested, but he actually attacked a cop? What is that? This is r/maliciouscompliance, where OP takes on requests that they know will be ridiculous. This post is by Izzy of Albion. From 1997 to 2004, I was a retail manager, mostly for a chain of record stores. Ooh. I was widely considered to be one of the best managers in the company, mainly because I worked hard, was very diligent, hired good staff, and took great pride in my work. My branch ran like clockwork, so I was frequently sent to other branches that were failing in order to get them licked into shape, to install better routines, and to retrain staff to keep it that way. The company even used in-store administrative paperwork that I designed because I found the existing stuff messy and inefficient. All this to say, my opinions were well respected, and any concerns I raised well heeded until October 2001. I was asked to sign for a consignment of trestle tables. That was how they were described. They were folding wallpaper pasting tables. I thought there must be some mistake, but no, it was addressed care of me and to my branch. The accompanying memo said that I needed to erect these tables, all 20 of them, on the shop floor and staple the accompanying plastic rolls of what I can only describe as trash bag plastic, both in quality and smell, but red, to the tops of them like tablecloths. There are a number of issues here. Firstly, what for? We have beautiful, bespoke, powder-coated shelving for all the CDs, etc. It's a slick professional retail space. What's the deal with wanting it to look like a yard sale? More importantly, my store, at least the retail space, is small, barely more than 15 by 20 feet in fact. And the middle of the room is dominated by a large immovable rack unit which houses the back catalogue CDs. Customers already complain that the store is cramped. People in wheelchairs and parents with strollers complain that it is hardly navigatable. So even one of these tables is going to provide a maddening and pointless obstacle, perhaps even a safety hazard, not to mention blocking access to existing stock. Just one. I'm supposed to erect 20. This is ridiculous. So I called my regional manager, I'll call him Greg, and asked him what this was about. In fact, I gave him my thoughts in the strongest possible terms, but he seemed to think it was a brilliant idea by our recently installed new owners and would get customers in. I pointed out that on the contrary, it was guaranteed to keep customers out since they'd sent me 240 square feet of tables and I only have 220 square feet of floor space. They couldn't even get in if they wanted to, and they would only want to out of sheer morbid curiosity. He simply could not understand the problem. Really? Greg, what we doing, man? Okay, let me put this in simple terms. 240 is bigger than 220, okay? If you have 240 feet of tables and you only have 220 feet of space, and the 220 space is for walking, right? How do they walk if it's all filled with tables? I implored him to understand the numbers, to visualize the absurdity of this. He couldn't. He said it had all been worked out and every branch had the exact number of tables they needed. The conversation got heated. I said he was stupid if he couldn't understand this. He ordered me to just get it done, and that he'd be down first thing in the morning to check compliance. And yes, I vividly remember him using that word before slamming the phone down. Well, I was infuriated, but determined to show him the issue fully if that's what he wanted. I stayed late, alone, and wrestled these tables into place, having to carry each one down a long flight of stairs since deliveries are made to the top level of the mall, what they call the service deck. It took me over 2 hours, cost me my back and many bruises and cuts, but I managed to get 18 of them in place, complete with tablecloths, quote unquote, stapled to them. My beautiful shop floor is now a 3-foot high sea of shitty red plastic with barely a single square foot of floor space to stand in. I made sure that there was a navigatable path underneath, since I still needed to set the alarm and get out. I did so, having to literally army crawl under the tables just to exit, just managing to get the shutter down and locked in time. The next morning, about 8:35 AM, Greg was there as promised, having got there before me. He was standing in stunned disbelief, looking through our grill shutter at this scene 18. What have you done? He said, somehow in disbelief. I wonder, Greg, I wonder. Exactly what you asked for. Exactly what we talked about yesterday. Wait there. I slid the shutter up and Army crawled back across the floor to the alarm to disarm it, before shouting back to him, that's what I have to do just to get in. What do you propose the customers do if they want to buy something? Or even look at a product? Should they walk on top of the tables or crawl underneath? Greg's eyes were like dinner plates as he stood helpless at the entrance. How he couldn't picture this in mind yesterday, I don't know, but I think he sees the problem now. Actually, Greg, this is only 18 of the 20 tables. We could stack the other 2 on top if you want. If it sounds like I'm being more cheeky to my boss than a person should, it's because I had already decided I was going to resign in due course. I was done with this. He shook his head despondently. Let's just clear this mess up. He started at his end, I started at mine. Annoyingly, the tables now won't even fold in half easily because of the plastic stapled to the top of them. I ended up using a box cutter to slice the join while Greg angrily slashed it with a car key. It took us at least 40 minutes to get them all folded away, back upstairs, and the shop floor clear. The store opened late as a result, with the resultant annoyed customers, and Greg spent the next hour using my store phone to tell head office what a stupid idea it was and that they had to urgently rethink. I will cross-post this in r/retail hell too if possible, since it illustrates the disconnect between the real world of frontline retail troops and the fantasy world of head office. Huh, retail hell, I've never heard of that one. Interesting. That was crazy. How could he not understand how the tables were going to collide? Like, dude, 240 bigger than 220? Yeah, it's not gonna fit. If the number's bigger, it's not gonna fit. They'd still need somewhere to walk. They're not gonna shop from outside. How will they get in? What, they walk on top of the tables? Like, what was the plan there? This next post is by Public One. Kevin versus the team. Boy oh boy am I excited for this one. Around 15 years ago, I worked on a sales team and we got a new manager, Kevin. No one warmed to him. From day one, he strutted in like the second coming of Wolf of Wall Street minus the charisma. He couldn't go 10 minutes without reminding us how incredible he'd been at his last company. Oh god, this guy. Okay. Apparently, he smashed targets, broke records, and worked his way up the ladder faster than anyone in history. If his mouth had a Fitbit, it would have hit 10,000 brags before lunch. The man didn't stop talking about himself and made no effort to get to know us, the team. At his first sales meeting, he opened with a monologue about his greatness that could have qualified as a TED Talk titled Why I Am Brilliant and You're Not. Then he laid into us about our sales figures. We were over target, but according to him, we weren't aiming high enough. We were a pretty nice and upbeat company, so there were lots of raised eyebrows and WTF shared looks. Like, how do you bollock a team who are airways over target? Then he was so full of himself, he actually said, I could hit that target on my own. So if you lot can't smash it as a team, something's seriously wrong. One of my bolder colleagues said, wow, what a fun and educational idea. Let's make it a competition. You versus the whole team. Everyone clapped and shouted a hell yeah. Then, as if fate itself wanted to join the fun, our director heard the commotion and walked in. My colleague announced, Kevin's going up against the team this month to keep us motivated and show us how it's done. The director agreed it was a great idea. The first week of Kevin versus the entire sales team was like watching a live action version of David and Goliath. If Goliath was a middle manager with anger issues, and David was literally everyone else. Kevin strutted in on Monday like he was about to deliver a masterclass, but didn't achieve a single sale, or the next day, or the next several after that. Meanwhile, the team was having the time of our lives. Even our new starter, Jonathan, a sweet nervous lad who'd never done sales before, was outselling Kevin by week 2. Every time Jonathan made a sale, the office would erupt like he'd scored in the World Cup. By the 3rd week, Kevin had entered what we'll call his tantrum era. Phones were slammed, headsets were thrown. At one point, he even dramatically announced this system is rigged. Kevin didn't make it until the end of the month. He left because he was pursuing among other opportunities, which we all understood to mean fired for being spectacularly bad. My colleague was right though, it was so fun and very educational. In our mutual hatred for Kevin, we worked harder than ever and smashed all previous sale records in company history, which felt extra satisfying, being as this was Kevin's main brag. I looked him up on LinkedIn recently, and his bio reads, "World's Class Sales Director, open to new opportunities," which I think probably means unemployed for being spectacularly bad and still full of himself. So it seems he didn't learn much at all. As this comment says here, director's wife, you seem to be in a good mood tonight. Director, the sales team is going up against that new chap I hired to lead them. It's going to be hilarious, and whatever happens, we're going to make bank. This was actually a really well told story too. Kevin really does sound like Jordan Belfort if he had no charisma. That's actually crazy. And dude, world-class sales director, who does he think he is? Zero sales and yet world-class sales director. Wonder what he thinks a bad one looks like. This next post is by Holy Clickerino. We have rules in this house? Thanks for reminding me, bro. I live in an apartment complex and I have two neighbors, Martha and let's call him Shaggy. You'll get why. Martha is a sweet old lady and Shaggy is a total and utter anus. He complained about the noise when I moved in, although I tried to be as quiet as I can, some noise just can't be avoided. He complains about the noise if I so much as sneeze, and woe be me if I forget to clean the hallways when it is my turn. His favorite saying, we have rules in this house. Whatever I do wrong, even the smallest infraction that a normal person would either overlook or seek a private talk about, got reported to the house owner or the cops. I have nothing but trouble for this mofo, and I hate his guts. One day I got the cops called on me due to a noise complaint at 9:50 p.m. House rules say that you have to keep the noise down to apartment level starting at 10 p.m. I immediately knew that the culprit was Shaggy because Martha not only does not give a damn unless I make so much noise the entire complex is shaking on its foundations, but is also completely deaf without her hearing aids, which she removes every day at 8 p.m. sharp. While the cops are snooping around my apartment, they were called because there were screams and curses coming from my apartment and they wanted to make sure I had not killed anyone, even though I had just burned myself something fierce on the stove and had vented my pain and frustration and generally being a bother. One of them suddenly asks me, do you smoke weed? And points out the window at the playground behind the complex, and that was when it hit me. Cannabis may have been legalized here in Germany, but the law states that there are places where you are simply not allowed to light up, like in the vicinity of playgrounds, schools, childcare facilities, etc. Makes sense, yeah? And Shaggy is a freaking stoner. Walks around with red eyes, his apartment and clothes reek of the stuff, and I've never seen him sober. He is constantly high as a kite, which makes arguing with him both scary and funny. Well, anyway, the playground behind the apartment complex means that the entire complex is a no weed zone, even if you only light up indoors. Now, normally I wouldn't have said anything because I ain't a snitch and Shaggy keeps it indoors. But like I said, Shaggy is a B-tard and a stickler for the rules. Well, two can play that game. I eventually got the cops off my butt after they had looked into every nook and cranny and found no corpse and told them to check out Shaggy, telling them about his weed use near a playground. Guess who got his apartment searched top to bottom and eventually arrested when he tried to attack an officer because he dared to touch his stash? We have rules in this house, Shaggy. Auntie Edith says, I know about Martha's hearing aid habits because I help her out with stuff, household work, going shopping with her, etc. While we are together, she likes to talk my ear off. Many old people like to talk if they have an audience about anything and whatever. And a few times, the topic of me being worried that I am too noisy for her liking came up. Since Shaggy constantly complains, she just laughed and waved me off with a just don't bring the house down and we're good. Besides, I remove my hearing aids in the evening at 8 p.m. Weird habit, I know, haha. The cops didn't kick in Shaggy's door just on my say-so. They went across the hall, rang the bell, and when Shaggy answered, they both took a step back upon the smell coming from his apartment. When they asked him if he's aware that there's a playground behind the house and that there are children in the house, kids of other inhabitants on the other floors, he became aggressive, as in, piss off man, it's all good nowadays. The police then asked him to show them his stash because while weed is legal now, there is a limit to how much you are allowed to have even in your apartment, 50 grams and up to 3 plants per adult person. He refused, and the cops cited probable cause because he is obviously hiding something and could hide/destroy the evidence if they waited for a warrant. They shoved Shaggy aside, he followed them in, and apparently the cops found way more than he is allowed to have because there was yelling, a commotion, and then Shaggy was let out in cuffs with one of the officers sporting a black eye. Wow, he didn't just get arrested, but he actually attacked a cop? What is that? Jesus, he dug himself a little hole there. What's he gonna do about that now? Damn. He didn't just get caught, he took it an extra step. Huh, oh well. He shouldn't have messed with you, OP. That's what he gets, I guess. Don't mess with OP, man. They get you arrested. This next post is by Pimmel. My boomer manager and his boomerish ways of managing backfired on him. What have you got to tell us, Pimmel? So a few years ago, I've got one of the most a-hole boss one could ever have. To give some context, this manager is on his 50s, almost 60s, still preying on younger employees, and that includes me. He tried to charm his way to me, but then he learned quickly that I got a boyfriend at the time, so then he started a hate campaign towards me, lol. Keep this in mind. Before I met this manager, I worked for the company for almost 2 years. I resigned, but this manager is new in the company when I am almost done serving my notice period, and he stopped me from resigning and offered me a retail manager position. I accepted since it's more pay, less hours, and good for experience. Anyway, back to present. When this boss started his hate campaign, one of his things is that he hates to see me sitting on my desk trying to do my job, i.e. making weekly schedules for the retail, resolving complaints, creating proposals for retail improvement, etc. For him, working means being on foot and actually literally moving from place to place. I should add to context that during his hate campaign, he also added my tasks. Apart from retail manager, he also unofficially appointed me to be a quality control checker, so 2 opposite jobs. I don't really know what to do at that point because I tried doing quality checking, but then I can't also at the same time do some paperwork and focus on retail, so my position got compromised. He always yell at me when he see I'm on my desk even if I am doing my job. I wouldn't let that happen, so I devised a way to show him what it means if he wanted me to do what he wants. I do the scheduling and the proposals during my break time, schedule, send it to him for approval, and do quality checking and make sure he sees me doing quality checking most of the time. Now, I deliberately send the schedules and proposals to him, and as expected, he did not read it. He barely even read a simple message, so I waited for him to yell at me for neglecting my retail manager duties. Surprisingly, he did not yell at me. Instead, he called a meeting with the owner of the company and the director to publicly humiliate me during the meeting. He claimed I had failed to do my job as a retail manager and that he wants to fire me. Unbeknownst to him, my emails had the manager, the director, and anyone important to the company CC'd on it. Now it's his turn to be humiliated, not even reading the email, and now claiming I failed to do my job. I then explained to all the bosses what I was tasked to do and why I did what I did. The boomer got fired, I got a raise, but still left the company after a few months for a different opportunity. I'm really glad it worked out for you, OP. Some people just don't understand how things are more online now, or even paperwork. A lot of people just think walking around is work and that's where it stays. I don't really understand that mentality, as there are so many things that aren't just that, but sure, I guess you go off, twin. He also stacked 2 roles on top of each other. Why did he do that? I think he was just trying to fire you, but was bad at it. He couldn't fire you for his actual reason, which was that you weren't going to do both of the jobs because you did both of the jobs. He was like, oh, but you didn't do them though, when you did and have proof of it. So that was stupid. This next post is by Xeon Shot. Tell me to shut up and do as I'm told. Okay. This happened a few years ago, but it still makes me laugh. I used to work at the family-owned restaurant in a tourist town. The staff was moderately okay, but the whole we're a family mentality should have been my red flag. So starting out, we had a 40-ish male manager had worked there since it opened 13-ish years ago when I first started. Mike was an okay guy, a bit tense and honestly not one for small talk, but whatever. His assistant manager Kelsey, however, was a bit of a She had worked there for 9 years and took at least 10 smoke breaks a shift, while we, the servers, weren't allowed to go outside. But one at a time, and only for a few minutes, she would stand out there all day and kick us off our breaks if she wanted one. One day I'm filling up ketchup bottles. We usually marry them, like pouring one into another. All restaurants do this, by the way. It's not a new concept. Kelsey sees me and berates me, stating that it's a health code violation and I need to fill small ramekins to go every time. Obviously, that's some BS. That has been the standard at chain restaurants for years, to marry bottle to bottle. So I do it, I let it go. The next day, I see my coworker marrying bottles, and I mention what Kelsey said to me, and Mike overheard and said, I should shut up and do what my manager tells me, even if it's different from others. So Sierra can marry bottles, but I have to waste extra time to fill tiny ramekins? Bet. So that night, I have my coworkers bring me everything: ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, A1 sauce, barbecue, everything. And I filled an entire metal tub full of sauces, no labels, just 100 plus ramekins of random crap with a note that said, just do as you're told. I quit the next day. I heard later they found it and most of it went bad and Mike was absolutely but couldn't do anything. Also, side note, my favorite day working there was when Mike threatened to fire Kelsey for taking too long to poop and she cried outside chain smoking cigarettes. Jesus. Dude, there's so many people there that suck. Like Mike didn't sound like a great guy, but also Kelsey was the real villain of this story, I think. If you're doing the same job, you should have the same directions so that you can work together better. Otherwise, you could potentially just be wasting everyone's time. This was r/malicious compliance. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to go check out some other videos on the channel. If you agreed or disagreed with anything I said, make sure to let me know in the comments below. And also make sure to hit that subscribe button because I post new Reddit content every single day.